So we end up creating black ink to boost the shadows in an image, okay? So, cyan, magenta, yellow, which is a subtractive ink process, is what we use to print, whether it's your inkjet printer or your screen printing or offset printing or digital printing. You may submit a file that may be RGB to somebody, but there is a print engine that does a conversion to CMYK before it prints. Okay? I don't know if anyone here is going to the store, whether it's Walmart or some print ink supply store, and bought red, green, and blue inks. Anybody? I haven't. No. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It's out there. There is an additive print process out there.
We will talk about that a little bit more when we talk about hexacolor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but generally, your printing process will be made up of the subtractive process. Why do we say subtractive? Well, the other one was additive. We add the colors to achieve something. It starts with black. But we add the colors to achieve other colors. The subtractive process subtracts from white to see a color. Okay? And it's really obtained from the red, green, and blue colors. For instance, as I indicated earlier, if I just add red and green, I have yellow. Yellow is a subtractive color. Additive colors are red, green, and blue. But by adding two additive colors, I see the subtractive color yellow. If I were to add red and blue, I end up with a subtractive color magenta. And if I add blue and green, I end up with a subtractive color cyan. So in actual fact, in the conventional days during color separation, which was a skill that's now with a push of a button, say convert, image mode, RGB to CMYK, and it's done. That used to be a highly paid skill within the printing trade that's quickly gone away with a push of a button. But you took an image, put it on the copyboard, pointed light towards it, and reflected onto a piece of film. In front of the film was a filter. You put a red filter in front of that while the light projects out. Red filter projects itself, just like your dress is red and it projects itself and blocks out everything else, right? When you put out that red filter, it blocks out green and blue and projects red. What is blocked out actually becomes the separation in the process color or the subtractive color process. Green and blue will be blocked out when red projects. The green and blue gives you cyan. That will become your cyan printer. That's how we generated the cyan plate from your 4-color image with light projecting for the beams of light coming through red, green, and blue coming onto the film. You put a filter of red in front of the film and it says, I only project red. When it projects that red, the two colors that are blocked will be what? Green and blue, remember? Trichromatic. You have three colors, red, green, and blue. When red goes through, or projects, or reflects, green and blue are blocked. Green and blue then becomes cyan. That becomes your cyan plate. And you can repeat that process. If I put a blue filter in front of that image, shoot the light again, guess who's blocked? Red and green. What's that going to give me? My yellow separation. Then I do the same. This time I put the, what is it, green? Or is it? Yeah, I put the green, and I have blue and red. Blue and red will give me my magenta separation. Put that ink together, printing the shades of gray that have been transmitted through those filters, and you recreate that image. Now, when you recreate that image on white piece of paper, the process reverses itself again. What did you put on paper? You did not put red ink on paper. We don't print red ink, remember? Nobody prints red ink. You print cyan, magenta, yellow. But why am I seeing red? Because in that area you're seeing red, those two colors, yellow and magenta, are reflecting from there. And guess who they're blocking? Cyan. When yellow and magenta give you red, there are three colors that we're really playing with. Black is just it's to boost, it's an enhancement. It's not a color, it's neutral. It dirties up the process and makes it a darker or whatever, but it doesn't really add color to it. It adds a little bit of tone, right? So when I'm looking at the printed piece on paper, on white paper, the light, red, green, and blue light strikes it, white light, which is red, green, and blue, right? We talked about that. Red, green, and blue, we can split it up to get all the colors in the spectrum, right? So red, green, and blue will strike that white piece of, that printed piece. And what it's doing is subtracting itself. Red says, yeah, okay, I see something that looks like me over here. But what does that mean? What it really means is yellow and magenta are coming from that area. When you see green on that piece of paper, it means that cyan and yellow are in that area. And the combination of that, it's not always, I'm describing it in pure terms, and where everybody really sits by its own corner. But generally, the pixels will be mixed up. Colors are all always kind of mixed up. It's a range of color. But no matter what, there will be dominant colors in some areas, right? And where they dominate, it's because that those colors, a certain one or two, are prevalent in that area. If it looks neutral, it's because you got all three, say gray, because you got all three of them in that area. Except that in additive color, when you create gray, they're not equal values. They're not 50-50-50 or 2-2-2 or 4-4-4. Okay? Mainly because cyan ink is a weaker ink. It's more deficient ink. So in additive color, the cyan ink has to be increased to give you something that looks neutral.
10 percentage points.
About 10 percentage point, depending on which area is active. Okay, so in your highlight, it may be about 2 to 3 percentage points. So if I'm trying to create a gray color, or what we'll refer to as white, in the color printing. In color printing, 422, we do not print white. If I'm wearing a white shirt and you took a picture of me, and I'm presented this way, pure white, this will be the color of paper. So I'll have a head, there's nothing in between, and a pair of pants, right? It won't look right. So white has a value in color printing, or even black and white printing. White has a value. It may be the smallest printable dot. We'll have to put a dot in that area. We can't leave it as white. Otherwise, it will be blank head, nothing, and the rest of the body, right? It won't make sense at all. So white has a value, and as he showed you, that will be 422. So 533 and 422 is, I think I'm jumping ahead for some people.
Actually, if you
4% cyan.
wanted to make a box, go on the selected color, put 422.
So if I create a new color, a new system here, and I'm going to CMYK,
Right.
CMYK color, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. So I can create like that. So I can create in the CMYK color system 4% cyan, 2% magenta, 2% yellow, and 0.
That's white.
You can see that right there, that is the white we print. We print white. We have to put something on paper. It would not be just color paper, right? So you can see a little bit of variance between pure white and that. Okay, that will be the smallest printable dot that we can hold.
Now this is getting back to tone, because now what I want
Yes.
you to do is to make a midtone right next to the highlight. And put 50, 40, 40.
So in the mid-tone, in the highlight, cyan was about 2 to 3 percentage points higher, 422. But in the mid-tones, as
50, 40, 40.
so black is 0. Oops, you can feel it. Right? It looks gray, but it's made up of 3 colors. If I had made it 50, 50, 50, it would look more cyanic. Okay? Actually, it would look more, it would be kind of brownish, yeah, because the 2 colors will dominate, the cyan. Okay? If they're equal, because cyan is weaker than the other colors. If you make them equal, then the 2 colors will dominate the cyan and make it look more like them. Okay, and it will create a little.
Now do a
brown.
box of 70, 75, 77. So now you see where we're taking you? We're taking you back into the tone. And we're using color. But you're not seeing color, you're seeing range. Does that make sense?
So, what was it, 70?
75, 70, 70. Get that one. Another gray. And then you would go 95, 90, 97.
95, 90, okay. So that's because, of the inefficiency of the ink, cyan, the weakness of the ink cyan, in our subtractive color process, we always have to give it a little bit of a boost. Okay. Now, this is something that someone in photography, for instance, would not care about. If you're doing photography, no, that might not be your cup of tea, because that process is totally different from what we do. Completely different from what we do. Okay. Some of the things we do is because of the type of inks we use, the type of paper we use, the deficiencies in our cyan inks, for instance. All those things will lead us to compensate. Our whole process is about compensating. Just as in the early stages when we're talking about tones, knowing that, hey, my camera is not going to capture everything. Or I better set my camera right to capture as many tones as possible. Right? Because in the process, by the time I get to print, I'm going to lose something. But even when you capture all the tones, you're going to be there saying, hey, wait a second. I know that when I put that ink, whether it's inkjet, toner, processed inks, on the printing press, on paper, I better know what type of substrate. What paper is it? Is it coated paper? Is it uncoated paper? Is it newsprint? and compensate accordingly.